Aloha everybody, we are here on the low carb cruise and I'm so excited that Jonathan Shane is here to share his knowledge with not only the low carb cruise, but I was like, hey, can you want to do an interview with us? And it's super cash. It's our first full day here on the low carb cruise. And what I love about him is he's going to teach us everything about endurance training, where he came from. Like, I mean, I run marathons fasted, not anymore, but I didn't have a lot of information to send people, so this is why I wanted to ask you. First of all, where are you from?
Yeah, so originally I'm from Houston, Texas, but me and my wife and my 2 girls currently live in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, are you going to be at Palooza?
I will be.
All right, Keto Palooza. Everybody join us there. So you were always a runner, or did you start it?
No. So when I was younger, so my health journey kind of started off, I was 260 pounds at the age of 14. I was an emotional eater growing up. Lost all the weight, and part of the way I lost the weight was I would run to school. It was like 2 miles there and back. But I never really put the two together at that point. So I would run there and back, and then when I was playing football, I understood that I could always go. I was never the fastest or the strongest, but I had this tank. I could go do drills forever. Never really connected all those dots. And then when COVID happened, the lockdowns, I was bodybuilding at the time, and my show got canceled, and so I was like, what am I gonna do? So I started running. And when I started running, I was good at it. I don't know. And that was in 2020, and then so April of 2020, I started running. I went from doing nothing to doing like 5 miles a day every day. And then that following March, I ran my first marathon. And then the next December, I ran my first ultra, 50-mile ultra.
Wow, 50-mile ultra marathon.
Yeah.
Wow. And so when you were running to school as a kid, did you eat differently?
I did the bro science weight loss. Zero fat.
Did it work?
I lost the weight, but
did?
I lost like 100 pounds.
Okay.
But the thing is that it did cause, because I was young too, right? Like youth has a role in that as well.
It didn't for me, but okay.
No, but it definitely caused a lot of binging. I developed bulimia really bad because of the way I lost my weight.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I remember, like, for me, it never worked. Like, my friends, they could, have the ice cream and stuff. We were in swimming. I was in a lot of sports, but I could never exercise.
Ice cream.
Well, yeah, the tasty treat. Lickety split.
So bro science, when I mean by bro science, I mean like bodybuilding weight loss. I mean like I was eating like skinless chicken breast,
yeah. No, I got that.
Skim milk, and frozen veggies.
Right. But like, so when I was asking if you could run to school and stuff and you lost the weight, no, you had to change your diet. But for me, I thought I could out-exercise.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
But if you do the math, you have to run a marathon and a half to burn 1 pound of fat.
Oh yeah, a lot. Yeah.
But when I tell people they're like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, do not think that just because you go to the gym, you
can't outrun a bad diet.
No, you can't out-eat any exercise program.
Yeah.
So after COVID, you became this ultra marathoner. How did you change your diet to be able to fuel through that? Because if you're not running off of carbohydrates, what are you fueling off?
Yeah, so that's where and it's not talked a lot about in the low carb keto space because it's very nuanced and unique to runners.
Right.
So understand that as a low carb ketogenic athlete, I'm mainly running on fat, right? Absolutely, 100%, right? And I've ran 31 miles completely fasted, right? Now, can I do that at a competitive performance? That's when. So it also becomes like, what are your goals? If you're just trying to run a distance, the chances of you needing anything other than fats and proteins in your diet are much lower, right? But then you start going, okay, well, I want to get on a podium. I want to get competitive. Well, then that's where the conversation gets a little bit more complicated. So the way it started with me was I was strict keto. I mean, less than 20 total carbs for.
So tell me a typical day.
A typical day would have been wake up, fatty coffee, then probably eggs and bacon. Lunch would have been because I was just running so much, I just used it. Yeah. Lunch would have been probably beef and maybe cheese if I was feeling it, and then dinner would be steak or something like that, and that was pretty much my day. Yeah.
No, I try to teach everybody how bad coffee is, but
I am a coffee drinker. Okay, I'll just preface that up front.
I know. I worked at a coffee shop since I was 15.
I know it's acidic.
No, I get it.
It just smells good.
Okay, so with that was enough fat for you. Did you track your macros?
I did. So I was usually eating around 2,800, 3,000 calories a day.
Okay, with how much fat, protein?
Which I would think I was doing 70% fat.
7%. Okay.
Yeah, 30% protein.
And this is what I don't. When people say, "Oh, Maria, what do you eat?" Because I wanna look like you or lose weight like you. I was like, first of all, my diet when I was losing weight was totally different than what it is now, and how much I told you, I don't even sit down, right?
Yeah.
How much I work out, like I do need a lot of fat because I don't have any on my body for that fuel. So mine is quite high. I also have a quite high protein diet too.
Yeah.
Like percentages, I don't really know the percentages, but like the macros, you never know. But aloha friends, are you a carnivore like our carnivore friend over here? Well, if you are, or if you just started out, you might notice that you have low energy, even low moods, heavy legs walking upstairs. And what that means is that carbohydrates retain water. And when you eliminate all those carbohydrates, along goes all that water loss. You might get migraines, headaches. And what you need to do is you can't just drink more water because you're just going to urinate more. You need to add in something like Element. Element is a perfect electrolyte that has the best amount of sodium, potassium, and magnesium ratio. And they are so generous. If you use code, or actually if you go to drinkelement.com/KetoMaria, you get a free sample with your order. I love it. We always pack it when we come on safari or any of our trips. And it tastes delicious. I love this orange salt, and I actually marinate chicken with it. It's super delicious. Oh, check that out. How cool is that? Don't miss the free sample. It's awesome. Kai loves the grapefruit salt. Oh, we have more animals coming up. It's pretty cool, huh? Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Don't miss the free sample. It's awesome. Okay, so now competitively, do you add some glucose for fuel?
Correct.
Yeah,
I do.
Kind of like Zach Bitter.
Yeah. So what exactly? Zach Bitter does a great job of explaining this. So what I ran into was when I started running, everything was fine. I was getting faster. My heart rate was great, and then all of a sudden, it's like I woke up one day and my heart rate was super elevated. I started running and like my heart rate would get higher at the same pace. Like every day I would run. It was just getting like I was getting slower and I was getting less conditioned. And then I started to experience injury. I started to injure myself. My diet wasn't changing at all, but I was like, I messed up my Achilles. I did something to my IT band. I messed up my hip, all within like 3 months. And then when it got real bad, I started to have waves of depression, and I didn't understand what was going on. And my glucose it also went from like being in the 60s and 70s to being like 110, 115 fasted. And so I tried everything. I did like 80% fat. I went to really high protein. Okay. I did extended fasting. I was trying all these things. Did you check your iron levels? My iron levels? Yeah. I did not. But I was trying all this stuff and nothing was working. And I was like, but I love running. Yeah. So what am I gonna do here? Because I was actually really proud of never like eating carbs, and so like it was actually a real hard like mental thing for me to like give into that idea at all, break my streak, you know? Yeah. And one of my friends that's a runner was like, hey, like just try it. If it doesn't work, then just go back to what you were doing. Right. The first day I had carbs post-run, my blood sugar in 2 hours went from the 110 it had been at down to 87 for the first time in like 6 months. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. That literally goes against everything that I've taught and learned. And I realized it didn't, but it's just realizing that like, this was right in one context, this is right in another. And really, they're not the same situation. Like someone that's just starting to get metabolically healthy versus like an athlete, it's a very different conversation. And so I started to dig into it, and I ran into like, okay, so like endurance running burns through a lot of glycogen, which causes a stress response. And then the activity of running itself, as you know, very stressful. Yeah. And so that cortisol becomes chronic, and your body starts to have a hard time replenishing glycogen just due to the stress response, which causes a leak of blood sugar elevated, which causes a leak of insulin. And so you build this insulin resistance internally. It's called physiological insulin resistance. And the best way to deal with it is whole food strategic carbohydrates around your training. And so I started doing that, and I'm still ketogenic, right? Like I think the highest my carbs will go is if I'm running like 100 miles a week, like Zach Bitter, like he'll even say like our carbs will go to like 150, something like that, which is still, compared to high carb athletes is very low.
Right.
I mean, like my last race, I ran 77 miles, right? I had 280 carbs. I tracked it all. 280 carbs during that race, and the guy that finished when I finished had 900.
Whoa.
Right?
Dude.
It's a huge discrepancy
Yeah.
in what we fuel with. So it's realizing that we use carbs, as low carb athletes, we use carbs more as hormone regulators, not our main fuel source, because fat is always predominant.
So are you checking your hormones too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everything on me is
Cortisol or
regulated. Cortisol, testosterone, do saliva cortisol. Last time I checked my insulin, it was like a month and a half ago, it was 3.7. It's the lowest it's ever been.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just figured out my body.
That's so interesting. So I just want to touch, like when I said, did you check your iron? What I see a lot, thankful to Dr. Sarah Solt, she was talking about how all these people in the keto space are like, oh, it sounds like you have low electrolytes. You add electrolytes, kind of like Paul Saladino. He's like, I never felt better adding electrolytes, so he added carbohydrates. I'm guessing he had high iron because it looks the same.
High iron?
Yeah, too high. Well, he's a man. He's not losing blood like a woman does. He's eating a lot of red meat.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So, and it looks a lot like low electrolytes. Right?
Why is that? It's because of the play on your kidneys, or?
If you have high iron?
Yeah, why does it look like low electrolytes?
Oh, I'm not exactly sure, but it's like kind of what you were saying, how your heart rate was elevating, and you just it just kind of.
I've had clients actually recently. I was working with someone, and they had really low iron, and we were working on like getting
male
her.
Or
Female. I work predominantly with women. And yeah, it was she had really low iron, and we had to fix that. But she had like really elevated heart rate,
Yep.
and but she also had this is fun for you. She had hyperthyroidism induced by iodine supplementation. She was taking too much, and it made her go hyperthyroid. Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you recommend iodine? We had this conversation yesterday with one.
And granted, as an athlete, I do supplement. I have to preface this. I do supplement with things like I have my Reds and my pre-workout that I formulated, right? And so I use those because I'm an athlete and I do more than the average human.
Yeah.
But I think the average human, if you have to supplement in that diet, then you should look at your diet and see what am I not adding that's whole food.
What
And
if
of course
hate
there's
seafood?
of course there's well, they hate seafood. I don't know. Eat a fish. I mean, so I guess if you need it, right? Like if you can't find it in your diet, yeah. So if there's a preference issue, then yeah, I mean supplement. But I think I always question okay, why am I not getting this in my diet? And if there's a valid reason for not getting it in my diet, then I'll supplement. But if there's not a valid reason, I'll try to find a way to get it in my diet. Does that make sense?
What salt do you use?
What salt do I use? I usually use Celtic sea salt.
Okay. Do you know why I don't use sea salt?
Why don't you use sea salt?
Because the microplastics in the sea.
Oh yeah, microplastics. Yeah,
So I use
that.
Redmond, which is from the ancient seas of Utah.
Yeah, I use Redmond
But
too.
you're gonna need, there's no iodine in it.
There is no iodine in them.
So
It's
that's
true.
why-
It's true.
I mean, it's just a conversation to be had.
It's an interesting conversation. Yeah, I think there's a lot of nuance there.
Dr. Bernstein, I think, was saying 90% of the world is deficient in iodine.
I wonder why that is, because so something I find really fascinating when I'm thinking when I'm going through studies and I'm looking at deficiencies nowadays, I ask myself were we deficient in these 200 years ago? If not, why? Right?
Okay.
And so I start to ask those questions. It's curious, right?
Well, here's another conversation. I know a lot of carnivore experts say, oh, don't do BHRT because our ancestors didn't do that. Yeah, they died at 37.
That's right. Yeah, it's a fair point.
We're living most of our lives in this postmenopausal years. Why not? Why not feel the best that you can?
Absolutely. No, when I have clients that are going through menopause and they're like, well, I don't do HRT, and I'm like, well, we can try. Yeah, I said we can try natural. I'm very much homeopathic in that way. We can definitely try natural, but it's but the thing is we are, God's given us these minds to develop these crazy hormones. We buy these bioidentical hormones. Yeah, use them.
Again, we used to die at a much early rate.
Yeah.
My children are from Ethiopia, and I think the death rate is 35.
Is it?
Yeah. So we're living most of our lives, and what they say is when they're like, "Oh, Maria, I don't have any symptoms. I don't have sleepless nights. I don't have night sweats, whatever." And I'm like, "Well, you don't feel your arteries stiffening. You need estrogen, and the leading cause of killer in women is heart disease. And when you lose that estrogen, your arteries get very stiff, and this is why it's a leading cause.
Do they have? I mean, that is really fascinating.
And your bones need estrogen, and when you lose that estrogen, you lose bone
Do they
loss.
track that? That would be really interesting to me to read a study or a research paper on that. Do you know of any that I could look at that looked at women that died of heart attacks post-menopause and how low their estrogen was? That would be interesting if
I
they did
am
something like that.
interviewing somebody about
Okay.
that, and I'm gonna post it on YouTube.
Oh,
because
awesome.
She, a heart surgeon. I want to really attack. Like, I want to address this, and I think it's something that, first of all, nobody wants to talk about. Not to like get away from your running, which I want to come back.
No,
to.
no, I specialize in metabolic health and women's hormones, so I love this stuff.
Yeah.
This is like my jam.
Well, it's just huge because you lose that progesterone and you don't sleep.
Yep.
And even if you're eating like the perfect diet, and I think like that's going to be one of my next presentations is about sleep, because I was upstairs. Somebody that works on the cruise, we were talking about she's on this health journey, and I was like, well, how's your sleep? Working on the cruise ship, they're getting like 5 hours. They work
Dude,
so hard.
cruise ship. Oh man, that's why
They
you
work
tip
so
them.
hard.
That's why you
I
tip
know,
them good.
They work so hard.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I am eating really well, and she was, but she doesn't sleep. And I was like, well, that alone is going to keep your blood sugars elevated. It's going to make you crave carbohydrates. It's going to make like just weight loss very difficult. And she's like, oh my gosh, you're so right. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what has changed about your physique and everything, changing your diet or?
So this is where this gets really interesting. And again, I before I share this, I like to preface it that I am a long distance runner. I think it's really important to preface, because people hear some of this and go, well, that was the exact opposite for me. I'm like, well, yeah, but you weren't running like I'm running. So when I was on strict keto, as the physiological insulin resistance was developing,
I have that.
Yeah, as it was developing, I started to gain weight. So like I was running 50 miles a week and I was putting on body fat. And I didn't understand why, and I started to figure it out. And then when I started TKD, which is targeted ketogenic diet, which is just targeting carbs with the ketogenic diet, same amount of calories. I have a spreadsheet of this. Same amount of calories, and within 2 months, I lost 25 pounds, and I've maintained that physique since. I'm the leanest I have ever been in my life.
With carbohydrates.
With carbs at the right times.
There. So, how do you feel about like? We'll just bring it up. Dr. Bickman's here.
Yep.
And he's going to talk about insulin.
Yep.
And that if you just eat fat and don't raise insulin, then you can't gain weight.
I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with
I don't agree with
that.
that.
Love you, Dr. Bickman, but
Yeah. No, well, because
sorry.
I am a especially before I was running, I'm naturally for me to be as lean as I am, I know it's because of how active I am. I know I am naturally, I'm not naturally a super lean guy. I'm just it's not my genetics. But like I've gained weight on carnivore.
Oh, yeah.
I have 100. Like when people.
And you've had women clients do that
Oh
too,
my gosh, when they tell me they've gained, and they're like, well, I don't understand. I'm like, well, what are you eating? And they're like, well, I ate like a buttered coffee this morning, and I put butter on my steak. And literally, I can't tell you how many times I've started a food plan, and I've told them, okay, I just want you to not add fat to any of your meals, and they just lose weight. And they're like, I don't understand. And I'm like, it's because you were eating.
knew I loved you,
It's like you were eating an extra 2,000 calories a day. What
But
do you
they're
expect
told
to
that
happen?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it does matter.
It does matter.
Yeah, but it also gets into like when I talk about like carb cycling for women too, which is not for every woman at all. It's situational dependent. But when they're craving a cortisol suppressor, and so they're told to just eat more fat, and then they gain a bunch of fat just eating more fat, trying to like solve this issue. Yeah, there's issues with like that.
Calories do matter.
Calories, 100% they matter.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird like. So every diet, and you know this, right? Because I know that you're a big proponent of in the weight loss phase. PSMF can be really, really powerful.
And not everybody has to do that. It's just
Yeah. But like PSMF, what I do with my clients, bodybuilding, like Robert Sykes doing his bodybuilding, all that stuff, right? Doesn't matter how you frame it. If you're losing weight, it's because you're eating less calories than you burn.
Yep.
It's just you don't say that, right? Because maybe it's easier for the client to do it, to apply it, because they're not worried about calories. But like, well, I want you to only OMAD. The chances of you overeating calories on OMAD is really low.
Yeah.
Depending on the person, I can do it.
But do they get enough protein in OMAD?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a good. I'm not saying
get
it's I'm not saying it's a good approach. I'm just saying the concept of like, I can tell somebody to OMAD and they think calories don't matter, but they don't realize that I just put them in a position that they're just not eating a lot of calories.
Right. But when they say calories don't matter, these experts, then they tell them to eat every other day. What?
Yeah.
Right? Like
It's so bad.
That's the same thing.
And then they lose fat and muscle, and then they get smaller, but they still look the same, and they're still unhappy with themselves. And I'm like, well, that's what we call skinny fat, which is it's sad. It's sad to see because they're not given all the information, right? And
right.
I always tell my clients, like, you're never gonna find true health in the shadow of your favorite influencer.
No.
You got to pick and choose what works for you and what makes sense, and then apply it and find a well-rounded diet that's good for you long term, right? This can't be you can have moments of like caloric restriction for weight loss, but like the changes you're making have to be not only like sustainable long term in terms of mentally, but they have to make your body progress positively long term too. It's like, oh well, I could OMAD for the rest of my life. I'm like, yeah, but your body's muscle structure can't handle OMAD the rest of your life. So you need to,
especially as you age.
You need to find a way to get more protein. All my clients, almost all of them, when I first start working with them, don't eat enough protein. Almost all of them.
So
less than 100 grams. Yeah. Less than 100 grams.
All right, like, and they're athletes.
I know, they're like, I eat a lot of protein. I'm like, how much do you eat? And they're like, I think I did 85 yesterday. I'm like, I eat 200 grams a day. And that's a low day. Depends on how active I am.
How much do you weigh, can I ask?
Weigh 180, that's not, what, 186?
Okay, so I was just trying to...
Yeah, like 186. Yeah, so I try to, when I'm in season, when I'm running a lot, I try to shoot for 1.5 grams per pound. And then if I'm in the off season, I'm just lifting weights and not running, I shoot for 1 gram per pound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I do more than what I weigh. I shoot, like, I get like 120.
Oh, okay.
I don't really measure anymore. I just...
We just know. We know.
Right. But I do focus more on protein just because I like it better. But you said you do a lot of testing.
Yes.
So when women are doing like adding the fatty coffees and fat to their steak, which, I mean, if you think about our ancestors, you talk about like adding things.
Yeah.
Who had a butter churner?
They did it.
When they shot a woolly mammoth or like attacked one, right?
It's always funny. I always like when they're like, my ancestors ate this way, and I'm like, no, they didn't.
No,
they didn't have sticks of butter in their fridge.
No, they did not. They didn't like make sure, get the butter ready because we're gonna get that woolly mammoth, right?
Yeah.
But okay, so when you're testing, do you notice their blood sugar's getting worse when they're eating 0 carbohydrates, but like a lot of fat with their protein?
Correct. So I see specifically that question. Yes. Specifically that question. Yes, I do see, especially if that's not what they're. I've learned that when you learn to communicate with the body, like you start to learn its language, and it's like I tend to notice when you're trying to give your body something nutritionally that it doesn't want, it responds with a stress response, and then your blood sugar goes up and follows suit.
Well, what I like to explain is like filling a gas tank. If you're putting too much fuel in that gas tank, insulin is like a net, and when you're filling that gas tank too much, that net is like stretching, right? And your triglycerides are getting worse. No matter if you're putting carbohydrates in there or fat, your insulin resistance will get worse because it can't hold. It's like a net holding everything in.
It's why a study came out like 2 years ago that looked at saturated fat can cause insulin resistance due to some of the molecular enzymes that it creates. It's like, okay, well, yeah, not in excess it won't do that, but in excess, if there's enough of those enzymes and cofactors, then it's going to create insulin resistance.
Right. So in a calorie deficit, it wouldn't cause that issue, but in a calorie surplus, that's
will.
What he's trying to say.
Correct. Yeah.
You're just being like really.
I'm being nerdy.
No, nerdy. I love it. But that's just why, like, I exercise. So like, when I add the saturated fat, but you do not need that much. People are like, you need so much fat. Like your body needs fat. It's like, really? It doesn't. You don't need a ton.
No, I tell. So I always look at the bottom range, and then whatever's up from there really depends on what makes my client feel the best.
Yeah.
But I just say just never go below, 70, 80 grams a day continuously, right? Like if you have some days that are lower than that, that's fine. But as long as it's averaging like 80 grams a day, you really, hormonally speaking, you don't need more than that. You really don't.
I don't think you need that much.
Yeah, you don't?
Well, especially if you have a lot of body fat.
Oh no, yeah, a lot of body fat.
But you're working with athletes.
I'm working with athletes too, and I have to think about the fact that like our body fat is full of toxins and estrogens, and so it's not supplementing some of the nutrients that like dietary fat does. So I think that's an important part of like that too.
Right. You need about 30 grams to absorb vitamin A, D, E, and K.
Yeah. So.
But again, if you're not eating carbohydrates, you're gonna need more than 30 grams.
Yeah. So again, it's nuance. I think that's important too. Like there's nuance there too that needs to be factored in.
Right.
Athlete, not athlete, woman, man.
And if you're eating carbs or not, like there's even carnivores that eat fruit, right? Like, are you eating fruit or not? It's gonna change what you're gonna eat.
It's gonna change. Yeah. So like, and that's another thing is like energy balance. Like I think that's where people mess up too. Is like they might hear a conversation like this and be a runner or an athlete and go, I need to increase my carbs. But when they do, they don't drop their fats, and then they gain weight. I'm like, well, yeah, because there's an energy equation there. Like days my carbs are higher, I eat leaner proteins. On days I still eat pretty lean proteins. My protein's pretty like nowadays. So nowadays it's different. Nowadays, my fat usually doesn't go over 100. It might if I'm like really hungry and I have a really hard session. It might, but that's just because I'm eating a lot of meat. So it just goes up with it. I'm not intentionally trying to increase it. So usually I would say I'm usually like 40, 60, 50, 50 fat to protein.
Yeah.
And then my carbs will just go up when I need them. But normally they stay around 10% of my macros.
Okay, what nerd guy here is talking about is like protein. I'm just kidding. Protein is so important for everything in your body, your skin, your hair, your nails,
Everything.
your muscles.
Immune system.
But it's not a good energy source.
No, it's not.
So you need to either choose fat or carbohydrates.
Correct.
Or a combination of them.
Correct.
Like I love Dr. Ted Neiman. Like
Ted Neiman is.
But he loves carbohydrates more than fat.
He likes carbs way more, which I don't agree with.
Right.
That. That's why we disagree.
For me, maybe with your background of, I'm not saying, I didn't mean to bring this up, but binging.
Yeah,
like,
no,
it
I'm
brings
very
a lot
vulnerable.
of
It's fine.
sugar cravings on, don't you think?
Yes.
Look, and these like, I don't know, it just kind of let the floodgates open. I work with too many people like had one Girl Scout cookie because, you know, it's that time of year, and it's just, they come back a year later, she's like, I fell off the rail, you know, the rail is just, I don't know. I think that there's a really hard balance to. For me, I just like fat as my fuel rather than carbohydrates.
Yeah. For me, it's an eating like today. I had some watermelon with my eggs, and it's because I've gotten to the point now I'm really in tune with my body though.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know what I need today.
Well,
I'm
again,
gonna eat this
do
thing.
you notice that you have it towards the morning because you are more insulin sensitive
Yes.
in the morning?
I don't have carbs at all. At
See,
night, ever.
this is what I don't like when like this whole carb up phase. People would do like carbs before bed to help us sleep. It's like you don't need carbohydrates, but you do need water retention. And so I'm like, this is why I do electrolytes at bedtime. I do capsules at day. But you are more insulin sensitive in the morning, so shift that.
Yeah.
to the
So
morning.
my highest carbs tend to be morning and lunch.
Oh, another question about like testing cortisol. Do you work out in the morning and avoid nighttime?
Totally depends.
Oh man.
Totally depends. But you know what? I'll give it to you. Predominantly mornings, yes. Okay, get excited. What were you
Well,
saying?
because you know cortisol should be high in the morning and fall throughout the day, and a hard workout is going to make that cortisol go up.
Correct.
Do you notice you sleep better if you work out in the morning?
Uh,
Not necessarily.
what? No, because I mean my sleep's great.
Okay.
Sleep's great regardless. But again, I would have you'd have had to ask me this 3 years ago because I've got like you know how, for example, you know your body, you know what you need to eat. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I'm very intuitive at this point. Very intuitive.
It's just, I guess maybe like writing so many books, I know calories and you know every cut of meat. I know the protein, the
It's
fat.
like you just know you can look at it like like yesterday I was like, well, I don't want a lot of fat for dinner. I just want some protein. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna eat 3 slices of prime rib. I'm gonna have a New York strip, which I know is leaner, right? And then
Did you ever shrimp with that or no?
I had shrimp and I had snails. You like
Snails.
escargot?
I had. Well, it was National Escargot Day yesterday.
Oh, so you had it.
I had 2 of them. Yeah.
Nice.
And then I would get the chilled shrimp and I would like put it in that garlic sauce.
Oh, it's so good.
You know, it's really
This shrimp is so
you
good.
know. But that's the thing, like I'm such a foodie, it's hard to eat here sometimes because like I don't like the shoe leather steak, like the New York strip.
That's why I order it rare.
They like let you? They did?
Mine almost looked. Oh wait, do I have my phone? Here, I'll show you.
Because my
Where's
boys were
phone?
like, this.
Wait.
My boys have like a chef or a mom, right? And they're like, oh, this steak is not good. I was like, well,
How'd you order it?
medium rare.
See, they're spoiled. That's the thing.
They're spoiled, but they don't even know it.
Wait, did I take a photo of the
You
steak?
didn't take a photo of your steak?
I didn't take a photo of the steak.
Dude.
I only have a photo of the snail, people.
Mamma mia.
It's just the snail.
Snails. The snails.
Horrible.
Okay, so the thing about snails, people gross out about it. It's like, it tastes like pizza.
Oh my gosh.
It's garlic
I
butter.
literally was eating them last night and I was like, the slugs in my patio should be scared when I get home.
You're gonna make
It's
them?
so on. I'm just gonna
You're gonna
I'm just
make
gonna be like hunting. Like, what are you doing? I'm hunting for dinner.
Oh, that's so funny. Would your girls eat them? How old are they?
So one of them she's almost due. My wife's 8 months pregnant.
Congratulations.
And then one of them's 3 is Haley.
Oh, cute.
Haley will
Show
eat-
everybody.
I don't know. This is
Haley.
So Haley eats raw liver. Haley
Good.
eat whatever.
She's at that. She doesn't have a car. She doesn't have a license. She doesn't have money.
She eats what I put in front of her.
Right.
Now, granted, no, I would say my daughter's much more paleo than keto.
That's
We're
fine.
definitely protein focused,
Right.
but you know she'll have like raw honey.
But-
We use like what is it? The Simple Mills brand. They use like watermelon seed flour and stuff
Okay.
like that.
I remember
Anyway,
that.
anyways,
But
yeah.
here's the thing, like, kids don't know what a French fry is until you put it in front of them.
That's true.
You
That's
know,
true.
like, but I had to change my kids because they were from Ethiopia. They had a totally different diet, but they were just happy to have food, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
It's kind of like emotional if I talk about that, but you know, the starvation and stuff
Yeah,
going
yeah.
on there. But no, they were just happy to eat, and now they're 13 and 14, and they talk about. Last night they were kind of telling everybody what their favorite foods are, and they're like, "You guys are deprived at all." They're like, "No."
No.
You know, they don't feel that way. So
You ever feed them raw food?
They only eat fish raw, so they love sashimi and they love beef tartare.
Beef tartare,
and,
okay.
Yeah, no, they.
I was just asking, because Ethiopian culture, like, there's a lot of raw meat, so I was curious.
And so in my presentation tomorrow, I'm going to talk about the acidity in our stomach, the pH of our stomach.
1.5 to 3,
1.5,
right?
yeah. And what people don't realize, that's lower than like a hyena. We are scavengers. And if you have a healthy body.
That's what I love about Dr. Sebi and the alkaline diet. You know, the alkaline diet? Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, no, I love talking to people that are all like, you need to like not eat acidic food. Like, you realize that your chyme, which is, so chyme is what is the scientific term for what your food turns into after it's broken down in your stomach and enters into your small intestines. And your chyme, for it to even get passed through to activate the enzymes in your small intestines, it has to hit 1.5 acidity level. So like, even if you eat something that's not acidic, it's acidic before it gets into your
pH water stuff.
Yeah,
that
it's
just dumb.
They just don't understand.
No, they don't. But here's the thing: only in a healthy body is it 1.5. Like, we've been doing like acid blockers.
That's so fair.
Then, like my dad, he was on acid blockers forever. I got him off, but he would go to like. He didn't like going to Mexico because he always got sick. I was like, that's because you have like nothing to digest food. In Ethiopia, what I'm getting at, their grocery stores is like a hut with no refrigeration, right? This is where you would go get meat.
Yeah.
And the meat was hanging there. The whole week I was there, and they would just slice it off.
It reminds me of the Philippines. I do mission work in the Philippines a lot. Yeah, and we go out in the boonies and the slums, and it sounds just like it.
It's tainted meat, right? Like a lot of people they would get sick because they're just not have the good stomach acid, but you should be able to digest that.
Yo, yeah, like that's why like when I go to the store, like, and we're like, let's say like we have a tight month, you know, budget wise, and we're trying to be frugal, I'll go to the on sale section. It's got a little, I don't care, I'm gonna eat it.
Yeah.
My stomach's an iron trap.
Yeah, I know.
And it should be. It should be. We'll be like, oh, your stomach's an iron trap, mine's weak. I'm like, well, yours should be an iron trap.
Let's get it there.
Yeah, let's get it there.
We'll get it there.
Exactly.
But where can everybody find you if they want to check out your cool stuff?
At the Keto Road on theketoroad.com, theketoroad@gmail.com, the Keto Road on Instagram or Facebook, any of those places, check me out. And then if you want to check out my supplements I talked about earlier, performancegains.com.
Oh, very cool. Are you going to be on the Alaskan cruise next year?
I don't know yet. My goal is to knock this talk out of the park.
Oh, it will. It will. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
So
I've
we'll
seen
see.
it before.
I've never been on the Alaskan cruise, so I'm excited about that. Yeah, I'm excited for this talk. I'm going to be talking about how it's titled "Women Deserve Better: Building Bio-Individual Keto for Diet for Yourself." But I'm going to be talking about like the disservice and the discrepancy on study-based education for women, and then basically give them some blueprints on how to like build a proper ketogenic diet for
Very
themselves.
cool.
So I'm excited about it.
Very cool. Well, check out his stuff, everybody, and we'll catch you back with more interviews.
Catch you next time.
When I was 16 years old, I was diagnosed with PCOS, acid reflux, depression, and IBS. Instead of taking those prescription drugs, I decided to change my life with food. Yes, food healed me, and it's healed so many of my clients over the past 20 years of working with people. If you are interested in transforming your life, check out KetoMaria.com. I'd be honored to help you.